This is a summer transfer window that we are going to remember for some time. And yesterday, the massive news broke that Arsenal are looking to hijack the deal for Eberechi Eze. That's right, we are sneaking in under our rivals' noses and pinching the player that so many of us want. This is Arsenal Unfiltered. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark, wherever you are in the world. I hope you are well, and I'm going to presume that you are, because yesterday we hit quite a low with the Kai Havertz news and then hit a massive high with the Eberechi Eze news. It has all happened, and today I was planning on sort of previewing the Leeds game and talking about Saturday's match. I think it would be wrong to not talk about what is going on in the transfer window right now and the 2 pieces of news David Ornstein broke to us yesterday, because it's just massive. Everything that's going on is very exciting as well. I do think there's lots of unknowns still. There's lots of unknowns in terms of how long will Havertz be out for, when will Eze join us, where will Eze play, but just to hopefully have that player in our squad will be massive and so crucial for Arsenal to add that final bit of quality that they need. Before we get into the details and start reliving some of the highs and lows of yesterday's ongoings, I guess, just want to say a massive thank you. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much. If you are a new listener, welcome. And for everyone, if you want to go and hit the follow button or leave a review wherever you get your podcasts from, it really helps the podcast grow. And we'll make sure, if you follow, make sure that you get this podcast 3 times a week straight into your provider of choice. So thank you so much for that. Let's start Kai Havertz, right? Because this is not a great piece of news. Yesterday in The Athletic at just after 2 o'clock, David Ornstein reported that Arsenal forward Kai Havertz is set for a spell on the sidelines with a knee injury. He was not part of the open training session, and that assessments are in an early stage, so prognosis and duration of any layoff is unclear. So I've also heard, bits and bobs online from reputable sources around he has some swelling in his knee. That probably means there's some damage. The extent to that damage is what we don't know yet, and it's really quite interesting for Kai Havertz, because I think actually he was probably even though we signed Victor Gyökeres, he was still a big part of the plans. And having him back from his hamstring tear that he suffered earlier in the calendar year, was seen as a massive boost. He was seen as a really important player. And yes, Victor Gyökeres played the first game up front, but I don't think that was by means any kind of sign that he was absolutely going to play every game up front. I think he would have started the majority of the early games to get him up to speed with the system and all of that sort of stuff. But as we moved into the Champions League campaign, it was very likely we were going to see lots of Kai Havertz up top. It's a really interesting one because Arsenal have not got any clarity on how long this is going to be. Worst case scenario, I guess you're looking at, touch wood, let's hope this isn't it, something like an ACL or a cruciate injury. Or you might be looking at something kind of more sprain-like, and it's 8 to 12 weeks. We just don't know. Actually, I was thinking about this. I find it quite unlikely that Kai Havertz is the exact reason why we've gone for Eze. I think he might have been part of it. Okay, I think the idea, because David Ornstein did report, because of the Kai Havertz injury, Arsenal are looking back into the market. But I don't think that will have been the case of, okay, Kai's gone down, we absolutely must go and sign a player, until they know the exact extent. If it's a season-long one, then it makes more sense, of course, and they might know that and not telling us. But if they genuinely don't know the extent, I find it odd that we would go straight back into the market, because we didn't act like that in January. I know it depends on whether the player's available and all of that sort of stuff, but Arsenal are not a team that make snap reaction decisions. That's not kind of how we do our business. So it feels like we were probably quite close to the Eze deal anyway. in terms of pulling the trigger on that, as I understand it from some reports, although this isn't, the most widely reported thing. It feels like we were already agreed or we had notified Palace that we would meet those terms if necessary, because we moved so fast on the Eze deal. So I guess all of that to say, I think we were actually probably dipping our toe in the water for Eze before this Kai Havertz information came out. But for him as a person, it's such a huge blow. Second injury in a year. For us as a team, again, like I say, I think he was going to be massive. So another really, really huge blow. I think it's most likely that someone like Leandro Trossard will come in and end up being that backup to Victor Gyökeres now for a time period. You've got to remember, Arsenal have Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus now injured, so that's 2 of their 3 forwards out. To add another forward into that group, from an external point of view, bringing someone in on a transfer would be very strange in terms of squad composition. I know they will probably look to sell Gabriel Jesus, but they will need to give him minutes on the other side of his injury to get his value back up and improve his fitness to be able to sell him. So there needs to be minutes there for him. Obviously, Kai is a long-term piece of the planning, so they're not going to go out and bring in a replacement like that. So it will be an internal replacement. Leandro Trossard, as I say, has been the de facto player there, but I wonder with our more direct style, might we see a return to Martinelli up front? Actually, if we are doing less of that build-up play through the number 9, if we are doing less of that kind of false 9 work, and what we're saying is actually go spin in behind, do the Victor Gyökeres job, run laterally and then run forward very, very quickly and make direct runs that turn the opposition defence around and allow Martin Ødegaard to find you, who knows? Could Martinelli do that? He has played successfully a long time ago, to be fair, but has played successfully as a striker for Arsenal. I can see it. I can see it a little bit more than Trossard just because of his mobility, his pace. I can't see Mikel Merino making a return up there unless we do go back to an old style. I can see him doing that at the ends of games, for control and stuff like that. But I think it will most likely be Trossard or a Martinelli in that position. Who knows? Could it be Ethan Nwaneri? I mean, we've heard so much before about Arteta saying, I can see him as a 9, and I don't get that quite as much. I think he's a player who's much better when he is arriving onto the ball. Rather, he needs to start behind the ball and then progress. I don't see him as a player who, when the ball's played in front of him, he really excels. And I think he's still quite young, isn't he? So it's maybe a possibility that we might see it at the end of 1 or 2 games, but I can't see it being a continuous option. What it does mean, of course, is Victor Gyökeres will need to get up to speed really, really fast. I mean, I hope the Leeds game goes well for him. We saw some really poor moments, I think, from the whole front 3 against Manchester United. I mentioned this on the review podcast where they all sort of ran into the same spaces. And when you've got a back 3 like Manchester United had, regardless of the quality of that back 3, I think De Ligt had a very good game and you can question the quality of the others. Regardless of that, if you're all running in straight lines at them, it's very easy to defend against. So, look, I think the front 3 need to work out how to play together and make sure some are peeling off, some are getting out of the way, but they are all going forward at pace. I think if they can sort that out, we will start to see Victor Gyökeres get chances and hopefully take chances. He needs to do that quite quickly because there was pressure on him already. It was huge pressure. Now it feels like it's just gone up a level with Kai Havertz coming out because, I believed there was a world where Victor Gyökeres started the first 2 and Kai Havertz started at Anfield just for that familiarity and that certainty. And when we know Mikel Arteta really, really likes certainty and control. So, yeah, look, it's going to be an internal solution up front. But the Eze signing, maybe this is the thing that just, they were ready, they were there. And this just pushed them over the edge. I'm going to have a quick break. Let's come back in a moment and talk about Eze. Sorry for interrupting everyone, but I am on a mission and I need your help. I'm trying to get Arsenal Unfiltered into the ears of as many people as possible. And the best way that you can help me do that is by going and leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts at. That really, really helps me grow the podcast and allows more people to hear the Arsenal Unfiltered coverage 3 times a week. So if you would be so kind to go and leave a review wherever you get your podcast from, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Welcome back. Let's get back into it then. Obviously in the first half we discussed Kai Havertz and how we might solve that problem of the backup to Victor Gyökeres. Obviously really bad news for us, but the great news today reported in The Athletic at 8:45. I think David Ornstein maybe reported this on his Twitter and stuff earlier than this. But Arsenal have made their move for Eberechi Eze, and the player wants to join them from Crystal Palace. Talks over the England international between Palace chairman Steve Parish and counterpart Daniel Levy have taken place over recent days, but Arsenal's interest has remained, with negotiations now underway between the clubs following the knee injury suffered by Kai Havertz. And that's a couple of really important words there. Arsenal's interest has remained. So that's what I mean. I think we were probably there or thereabouts with this deal, kind of no matter what. And then the Kai Havertz thing has just pushed it ever so slightly over the edge, got us into that position where it's like okay, we will do this now. But I don't think this is a complete hijack, if you know what I mean, where we weren't in for him at all and now we went in very quickly. I think we were very much ready to do it if if something changes, and something did change. So look, I am so excited about this. A lot of people have been talking for a while about, well, Eze is not a player who plays on the left wing. This is why Arsenal are not signing him, and they're not signing him because they don't want to block the Ethan Nwaneri progression. And I must admit, I've never really brought into that for a number of reasons. One, I think we are developing a front line / front four, if you include the kind of more attacking 8 in there, of incredibly versatile players. Incredibly versatile. If you think Bukayo Saka is really the only one who has a out and out position, Noni Madueke, we're yet to see. We've only really seen him on the left wing, but typically he is a right winger. So we've got question marks there. Martinelli has played left and right, and as I said before, he could play up front. Trossard up front and left and right. Eze could be the Ødegaard backup or the left winger. Nwaneri can be the right winger or the Ødegaard backup. So there's tons going on in there. And I never really thought that they were just looking at Nwaneri's development and saying, okay, you're only going to play right 8. And if we brought Eze in, well, that would be that. You wouldn't get any minutes there. Because I think there's a world where Nwaneri still gets minutes off the right wing. And I think there is a world where Eze would get minutes off the left wing. And I think we're too quick to put players into boxes. I think Mikel Arteta is far more comfortable saying, you will play, 30 games, let's say, for Ethan. And I'll get you in a number of positions, depending on the opposition, depending on the situation. I think it's going to be the same with Eze. I think there will be a game this year, or a couple of games, where we go, right, Rice at 6, Ødegaard at 8, Eze at 8. And we will attack like mad. But I think primarily he will play on the left wing. And the reason why I'm not too concerned about him playing on the left wing at all is, yes, typically our left winger stays very, very wide. But we've already seen, I guess, as well in the Athletic Club game and then in the Manchester United game, although it didn't work so well in the Manchester United game, this preference for Arsenal's wide players to come more narrow more quickly. And I think, yes, we have to be careful that both of them don't do it at the same time. But I do think what Mikel Arteta is saying is we need to get more presence in front of the goal. We need to get there quicker and we need to take shots off. So for me, a player who is a little bit different to Martinelli and is a little bit more comfortable playing maybe in the half space as opposed to right out wide, that's great. And if you need the out wide player, we still have that in Martinelli and probably Noni Madueke as well. So actually, we are just stacking a lot of talent. Again, Bukayo Saka, touch wood, if he has a problem, Madueke can go out there. He'll be able to come centrally, and you could provide the width with Martinelli off the left. But for me, Eze will fill that really, really important gap and give us a boost in quality off the left wing and allow us to do that. Our new style will allow him to perform as he has done at Palace. Another really important thing I think is when you look at Martinelli, who is obviously the preferred option at left wing, one thing I think he's been very poor at is receiving the ball when he stood still. I know I've said this on a number of podcasts, but just humour me. Let me repeat myself here, because I think now that Eze is coming, this is an essential point. An essential point. When Martinelli receives the ball standing still, the defender is licking his lips because he knows he's not going to get up to speed, generate the kind of pace that he needs to beat his man. And Often we see him do that kind of foot-to-foot transfer, trying to offset the defender. It's very easy to defend Martinelli when he picks the ball up in that kind of scenario. Listen, if he picks it up in a flying run, and he is a player who likes to run onto it, if he picks the ball up like that, it's very difficult for defenders, any defender in the world, to deal with Martinelli. It's just he picks the ball up like that so rarely. And for me, Eberechi Eze is the exact opposite of that. Not that he can't pick the ball up on the fly, he can. But when he picks the ball up standing still, defenders are still worried. He is a player who actually does not have that many... Well, he's very low, actually, in the last 365 days on progressive carries. But he's very high on successful take-ons. So what this means is he's not travelling with the ball. He's not picking the ball up and carrying it 15, 20 yards. But what he is doing is picking the ball up, probably standing still, and very quickly beating his man. It's really interesting to think of Arsenal in a low block with Eberechi Eze on the left, because Bukayo Saka can do both, but Martinelli has often struggled, and this is why I think our left side has been stunted for so long, has really struggled in static positions, playing from a static standing start basically, and Eze is not a player who has that issue. So we're really going to see, if he plays on the left wing, which I think he will, we're going to see a new weapon to have against the low blocks, against the teams who are just going to go, come and get through us, Arsenal, come and beat us. So look, really, really excited about the prospect of him on the left wing. And I think no matter where you see Eze, if you want to see Eze play as a left 8, if you want to see him play as a left winger, it's a ceiling raiser for us. And actually, what we have to do is be really okay with the idea that Eze will play off the left wing sometimes. He might start centrally sometimes in place of Ødegaard to kind of provide cover. He might start with Ødegaard or with Nwaneri, or he might start on the bench and come on and change games. We have to remember, we have now signed a big group of players in that area, and signed and brought through from Hale End, of course. A big group of players that we all want to see play. I want to see Ethan play. I want to see Eze play. I want to see Madueke play. These guys are going to come in and they're going to get lots of minutes, and we have to be okay with actually saying, okay, well, how do we get time for Saka, Madueke, Eze, Ethan, Martin Ødegaard, Gabriel Martinelli, all of these players? How do we fit them all in? We rotate. We rotate and we play the team that is right against the whatever certain opponent it is. So look, to steal a Clive Palmerism, forget about the starting 11 for a bit. We know the starting 11 in certain areas. Gyökeres is going to be up front. The centre-backs and the goalkeeper and probably the defensive midfielder. That's going to be what it is. But then around that, we will rotate. And remember, right now, for the first 3 weeks of the season, we will go week to week to week. But after that, we will be going 2 games a week, sometimes 3, with Champions League, League Cup, Premier League. It's going to be hectic. We are going to need players of this quality, and we all looked at that kind of area and said we could do with a quality raiser, someone who, when you've got that kind of banana skin fixture, and Martin Ødegaard hasn't looked that fresh, or Gabriel Martinelli hasn't looked that fresh, you can bring in. Madueke is going to fill a similar hole. Maybe actually it's probably going to be Eze starting more games on the left wing and Martinelli comes in for him. That's a fantastic position to be in. So, look, I've rambled a little bit there, but look, what I'm saying is don't get obsessed with he has to play left wing or centre mid or whatever. He will go around and he will provide us with lots and lots of different options. 8 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League last season for Eberechi Eze. That's what he'll provide. If you're wondering, he will provide goals and assists. I mean, he's the first Crystal Palace player in a long time. I think I've read that earlier, so don't quote me on that. I'm going to have to double check it. But to get 3 goals and assists, 3? I'm going to try that again, okay? Double figures for goals and assists in 3 consecutive seasons. You got 14 in 22-23, 15 in 23-24, and 16 in 24-25. If he comes to Arsenal in 25-26, he is surely going to get a lot more chances. Surely. So, I think it's really, really exciting. He finishes on average a little bit better than his XG allows him, but last season he was down on that. So that's quite an interesting one, that he actually underperformed and still got 8 goals last year. We could have really done with his 8 goals. So let's just say I'm very, very excited. I think he's going to fit really, really well, and it's a return home. He was an Arsenal boy in the Arsenal Academy, and you've all seen the interview, I'm sure, where he says leaving Arsenal was the hardest thing that he ever had to do. Let's very quickly think ahead over the next couple of days. We will not get him in today. I believe that he is still set to play in the, I think it's Conference League game that Palace have got this afternoon. And, well, that certainly was the case when Tottenham were buying him. I don't know if that will change, actually, during this morning, but let's presume that it won't change and he is off to play in that game. I presume they've already travelled and all sorts. So if that's the case, we won't see him today. I doubt we'll even see him for the weekend because that's going to be a lot of admin to get him through the door. But hopefully he will be in the squad for the Liverpool game before the international break. So, look, it's fantastic deal to do. We've still got a little bit of a way to go. But it's also a really fantastic deal to do right under the noses of Tottenham. I mean, if you've been online in the last sort of 12 to 16 hours, you have seen the meltdown from Tottenham fans, and it's glorious. It's lovely. They thought they were getting one of the Premier League's best players, and we swoop in last minute to pick him up and take him from under their noses. So it's fantastic news for us. Quick look ahead to the Leeds game. Look, they've obviously had a very, very good result in their first game. I believe Anton Stack has received a lot of plaudits for his performance in a Leeds shirt. But what I'm thinking really now is this is the first game that we have at home this year. I'm buoyed by this Eberechi Eze news. The crowd, I would imagine, will be right up for it. Will be really, really loud, singing a lot, and in comparison to the atmosphere at Old Trafford, which was very hostile, very difficult to deal with, and obviously a first game is always pressured, but a first game at Old Trafford is really, really difficult. I think playing at the Emirates will really relax some of our players and hopefully allow some of the new styles that we're trying to implement to come through a little bit better. So, look, let's see what happens, but I'm quite quietly confident that this should be one. It's one of the only ones actually in this first six that we should be able to navigate without too much worry. Leeds, credit to them, they've already got their first win. That's something that's going to be massive, for a team that's newly promoted to already have their first win under the belt and get that kind of voodoo off their back. That's fantastic. But I think we will probably just be too much for them on the day. And look, we're getting weeks at a time here to prep. We're not getting 2-3 days like we do in the thick of the season. We are getting a whole week to go and prep and work on what didn't work at Manchester United and adjust it for Leeds. So, look, I feel pretty confident. I'm going to leave it there. It's obviously fantastic news. Very sad for Kai, but hopefully that injury is not too long. Eze, let's get this done now that we have had the exciting news from David Ornstein. Now that we have had the elation, I just want to see him in an Arsenal shirt, signing the contract with Andre Alberta and Mikel Arteta behind him, and get him into the squad. Let's get him integrated as quickly as possible. It won't be for Leeds. I'd be very, very doubtful. But hopefully we will beat Leeds and we will go on to Anfield with Eberechi Eze playing off the left wing. Oh, I would love that. That would be incredible. Like I said at the start and in the middle, guys, if you've enjoyed this episode or any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please do consider following the podcast and leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts from. It really, really does help me grow the podcast and allows more Arsenal fans to hear this kind of coverage 3 times a week. All that's left to say now is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you again very, very soon.